Who turned off the lights?
Come on, Joe. Look, I know it's the last one. It's the last one for me as well. Can you just pull yourself together?
There's no need to be so insensitive.
Right, all right, okay, all right. You can have it, right? I'll go and get some more. Sorry, does anyone know where I can buy Rolos round here? Hello and welcome to Windbags. I'm Donna McPhail.
And I'm Jo Brand. And we're a kind of Virginia Bottomley and Margaret Thatcher of the radio.
Except that if you put the pair of us into a vice and tightened it as far as it would go, pus wouldn't come out.
Oh, dear.
That's what I say. Now, we were hoping to get Sonia on the programme this week, but believe it or not, she turned us down on the basis that it wouldn't suit her serious actress image. That's the truth. In your dreams, darling. Luckily, we do have a guest who I happen to know does the most uncanny impression of our girl Sonia, at the same time owning her own designer clothes shop and being one half of the best double act in the kingdom of comedy. Welcome to Windbags, Dawn French.
Oh, thank you.
Any chance of a bit of Sonia, just for old time's sake?
Well, there's only one word I can say like Sonia, which is sophisticated.
He did used to say, Liverpool.
And I have to say that Sonia has now refused 3 programmes that she knows I'm going to be on. I think it's me she's scared of. I don't think it's you.
We're also very pleased to welcome a stand-up comic famed for her deadly cool one-liners that can kill off a hod carrier's brain cells at 50 yards. Hello, Hattie Hayridge.
Hello, Jo and Donna.
Right, now I want to find out from you, what's the worst thing a critic's ever said about you?
The only one I know in print, well, there's probably a load that I've missed, but the only one I know in print was called me boring and anemic. It's not very nice.
Who was that?
Somebody in TNT, you know, that Australia magazine they give out at tube stations, so I wasn't overly upset about it.
OK, now, I've got absolutely no idea how to introduce the next guest, I'm afraid, and if you'd read her CV, nor would you. She's either lying...
Well, I've noticed. I've been here for a while yet. Nothing said anything.
She's either lying, barking, or my kind of girl, except sometimes she calls herself Peter. And how many award-winning crime writer come TV presenting ex-drug-taking hippie dropouts do you know who worked as a hostess in a Japanese nightclub before producing Kaleidoscope? I think you'll find there's only one, and I'm looking at her. Welcome to Windbags, Sarah Dunant.
It's not me. Actually, Dawn did all of those things before.
I had this CV. What happened? Did you just take an awful lot of acid when you were young, or did you actually do all those things?
I took an awful lot of acid and went to Japan, where I ended up working in a nightclub.
As a hostess, which we'll come to later. But you did do all those things. You have hung around with cocaine dealers and such like.
No, it's all just to make the CV look good. I just went to grammar school and, you know, got a degree and left and went to the BBC, and it just was so boring when people came to interview me that I just made it up.
OK.
Thanks for that.
Well, let's move on to our paragon of perfect pronunciation. Hello, Sue Carpenter.
Hello.
Sue, have you ever taken any drugs when you were reading the news?
No, it might have helped.
Bad luck to the Ireland football team, by the way, but it was a bit of a relief, wasn't it? I don't know about you, but I was getting a bit tired of pretending to be Irish. Still, well done to the Dutch. You've done your country, Holland, and the rest of Great Britain proud. We're opening the show with that lipstick lad, Robert Smith, The Cure. This is In Between Days. Oh, that was most definitely The Cure. Now, at this point, I was going to be interviewing that rather intellectual, sophisticated middle-class woman who presents an arts programme on BBC Two, but I'm not at all sure of my ground now. Sarah Dunant, watching you presenting The Late Show, you give absolutely nothing away about who you are. Is this because you haven't actually decided yet?
Yes. Yes.
Fine. And on to the
If
next
you come back
guest.
to me at the end of the programme, I'll know.
I mean, how long have you been doing The Late Show now? Do you not have to interview people who you find absolutely dull and tedious? I know I do.
No, I interview people who I find obnoxious, but not necessarily dull and tedious.
But you can't like everything and you can't admire all the work that everybody does. I mean, it must get like, oh, God, I hate this painter, or I think these people's books are crap.
Yeah, but you can say that. I mean, you can't say that, what you just said. But you can say, as if you were saying that, but using other words.
I.e. just be sort of like critical in a rather intelligent way.
Yeah, see, that's the difference between
Instead
Windbags
of me
and The
just
Late
saying
Show.
crap, yeah. So,
Can I ask Sarah a question?
oh, God, I'll just go home, shall I?
Yeah, why not?
Please do.
Has it actually been a problem being female presenting the Late Show? Because I would imagine that some of the guys you have on it would attempt to sort of put you down a little bit.
I think they did at the beginning. I once had a quite an interesting run-in with Peregrine Worsthorne, probably one of my most favourite men, where he would not stop talking, and I had to move the discussion on, and I had to stop him talking. And the only way I could do it, and I remember doing it well, was as he carried on talking, I said, Peregrine, you have to stop talking now because we have to move on. Peregrine, I am just going to continue to talk. Peregrine, I'm still talking here. Can you hear me, Peregrine? Will you please stop now? And eventually, just the sheer din of me carrying on talking rubbish, he stopped and there was a breath and I went, thank you, Peregrine, now perhaps we can move on. And the really interesting thing was he came on the programme some years later to do an obituary of Malcolm Muggeridge, and he came up to me before the programme and said, oh, I remember being on before. I think I was rather naughty, wasn't I?
Naughty. Slap on the wrist.
I wanted you to spank him.
But what are you most? I mean, you've been a hippie. You went out to Bogota. I just wanted to say that. I'll say that again. Bogota. How would you say it, Sue, as a newsreader?
Pretty much like that, Donna.
Bogota. And you just hung out with a huge cocaine group of people. Did you get any sleep? What's going on there?
Have you been reading my novels?
No, I haven't.
No,
but you do have a novel. I love this. The name of your first novel, Snowstorms in a Hot Climate, and it's about cocaine, obsessive love, and the power of female friendship, which is a bit of a comedy. Yeah. That's a very heavy
You take that
thing.
much cocaine and you can do anything. Really.
Or you think you can. Big difference. So how long were you doing that for?
No, I wasn't. What happened is I was out travelling in Central and South America, and I was travelling with a guy who, on the borders of Colombia and Ecuador, got everything stolen. We lost everything, and he had to go back to Bogota to get a passport. And while we were there, we did indeed meet some people who, it became pretty clear pretty early on, were not there because Bogota was a really nice city to boogie in. And they were indeed cocaine dealers. But this was a time, it's very hard to describe this because people's attitudes to drugs have changed.
When was this?
So
1978?
Oh, 1914. But that, it was a time before the mafia had moved in to heavily take over the cocaine trade. It was a time when cocaine was still a very hip drug to take. It was before crack. It was before it became a drug associated with poverty and crime and kind of inner city deprivation. This was record producer land, and it was a very glamorous drug. And it was just very interesting to be on the sidelines watching these independent American operators who came in, bought a whole load of the drug, slipped it back into California and sold it on. You say that now and people go, oh my God, shock, horror. But it's partly that 15 years separates then and now, and our whole attitude to drugs has changed absolutely totally.
I mean, you say now that you don't take drugs nowadays because it doesn't fit into your lifestyle anymore.
When did I say
and also
that?
it's illegal. You see, well, that was actually in an interview with Caroline Phillips in the Evening Standard.
Yes, well, I wouldn't believe a lot of that interview myself. But still.
Was she on drugs?
Well, I'm a
So when was it?
mother of two.
Now, you're post-Cambridge, but we won't talk about that because you seem quite nice. And you went out to Japan. Was this before you produced Kaleidoscope? After you were the cocaine people? When was this?
This was just after the First World War, in the early 20s.
During the Depression?
During the Depression, yes. It lasted a long time.
Yeah.
And I fetched up in Tokyo, where I had a friend staying, and...
I love that word, fetched up. I like that. You're a novelist, aren't you?
That's two words.
Obviously, I meant the phrase.
You could use them
Right.
later if you wanted. And I didn't have any money, and I'd been told that you could earn money teaching English, but it took a while to do that. And then I was told that you could earn more money becoming a hostess in a nightclub.
How long did you do that job for?
I did it for 6-7 months. And to be serious just for a minute, at the time I thought, this is a great way to earn money, it's not a problem, I don't care, I don't want to sleep with these men, I don't want to go out with them, I'm happy to talk to them. I think in retrospect, it can get a bit sleazy selling your company, which is basically what I was doing.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I mean, you were talking about it as if you feel slightly ashamed of it now, as if it is a kind of prostitution.
No, what I would say is that for quite a long time, I went off men as a result of doing it.
Yes, because you had to talk to so bloody many of them.
Yeah. I love at the bottom of here, it says that you admit to getting occasionally overconfident and having loss of perspective and humility. Which I think is actually boasting.
I would debate that.
Yeah. I would never
Which bit
admit
of it
that. That's the sort of thing other people say about you. It's not the sort of thing it's... I mean, are you overconfident?
Well,
is there anything? Is there such a thing as being overconfident?
we could be serious or funny about this. I mean,
Let's
I
be
think
funny.
that, well, no, let's be serious just for a second. I suspect that every woman around this table spends a lot of their life being somewhat more confident than they actually feel, and that sometimes all that falls apart. I think the difference is that probably men do that all the time. They just don't talk about it or admit to it.
So what you're saying is you pretend, you put on this self-confidence.
No, actually, I pretend to be vulnerable.
It works on men much better, doesn't it?
Don't forget to moisturize on Radio 1FM.
In this day and age, of course, it is very important for women to be aware of difficult or dangerous situations they might get themselves into. And I'm not talking about the 24-hour garage running out of silk cut here. I'm talking about violence on the streets. Now, it's important to know how to react to these situations, so here are a few tips on how to cope. Number one, if you're attacked in the street, your first option, of course, is to leg it. Fine, if you're in the British women's relay team, you could probably manage to get his wallet at the same time. If, on the other hand, you're like me and your greatest achievement sporting-wise is repetitive strain injury from picking up too many Snickers, you have to stand and fight. Now, I've been told by a policeman's daughter that your best option is a punch in the throat rather than a kick in the ghoulies. More effective, but emotionally very unfulfilling, I think, there. Now, your second option is to scream very loudly. Received wisdom is that it's more effective to shout, "Fire!" Why we've developed as a society that responds to a fire more easily than a woman being attacked, I don't know. But in this day and age, if you really want to attract people's attention, perhaps it's better to shout, "This bloke's actually been to a harvester," and this should attract an incredulous crowd. Now, one thing as well that you can do if a bloke's attacking you is try and put him off you. A sentence like, "My piles get a lot worse when I don't wash, and I wish all those boils on my bottom didn't look quite so much like pot noodle when I lance them," might help a bit. Also, I think if you're out on the street on your own, you've got to be prepared. The main advantage an attacker has is that he's more ready for it than you. So you can get round this problem by going round attacking men as a hobby. And if you're attacked in your flat, best option, be fat. I read a story about a woman in America who was attacked, and when this happened, she slid down onto the floor thinking to herself, "If you can get this fat ass off the floor, you can do what you want." He couldn't, so she won. Now, the main way to stay safe is really not to put yourself in dangerous situations. Don't be embarrassed to ask someone to walk you home or to a cab place. I once asked someone to accompany me to my car, feeling a bit wimpish, but on the way we saw a fight, a car crash into a shop window right in front of us, and someone tried to attack me. Well, it was actually the bloke I asked to take me to my car. I suppose I shouldn't have hit him and then driven his car into a shop window.
So did you pass the driving test?
Not on that occasion, no.
Anybody got any advice about sort of safety on the roads? The one thing that I would say is that, and this is to men if they're listening, which are probably not because it's girls, but the one thing that men don't realise is how frightening it is to hear a man's footsteps behind them. And they often think, I'll walk behind her because then she'll feel safe. But she's actually shitting herself. So I would say to men, the best signal you can give is to actually cross to the other side of the road and walk diagonally opposite, but just at her pace, and let her know that A, you don't mean her any harm, and B, you're looking out in case anybody does do her any harm. All right, chaps.
Perhaps sing a hymn or something so they think that you're nice.
Wear a
about
dog collar, that
accidents.
kind of thing.
We weren't talking about accidents, were we?
But we
Right,
could have been.
It's about, yes, the crash, and that's what I'm thinking about. I once was at Swiss Cottage, and a man, there was an accident in the road, and you know how people sort of mill around an accident, and I was trying not to look as if I was milling around it, but I was getting quite close to the gore. And
Trying to hide the video camera.
Yes. And a man pushed through, got to the front, and all the time he was saying, "Excuse me, I'm a nosy Parker. I have to..." "Excuse me, I'm a nosy Parker."
Fantastic.
And everybody made way for this
We've
person
turned
to
off
get
the
through to the
lights.
front.
To be a doctor.
Yeah.
Right, well, let's have a little tune now. Now, Donna likes this very much.
The producer likes
it.
it.
The producer likes it, so we have to have it on.
Yeah.
And it's Aretha Franklin whining on about something to do with praying.
When I wake up, before I put on my makeup.
Excuse me, has anyone seen my shirt? Hattie, you haven't.
Oh.
You haven't hopped it to put a bet on when the Pope's going to have his toenails cut. I think you have. Well, we've got her here. Tie her down in her chair. Don't let her back in Ladbrokes. Hattie, bit of a punter's betting problem, I think.
Oh, not much of a problem, but, I've just been going in betting shops, sneaking in and out of them since I was about 7, but at that time it was mainly to get me dad out and tell him his dinner was on the table. You see, you need to be trained, you need to have training. It should be part of the national curriculum.
They don't explain, do they?
No, there's nowhere. No, you buy a bag of tea bags and it tells you how to make a cup of tea. You go into a betting shop, there's nothing nowhere that tells you how to lose your money. I'd say the best tip really is to read carefully the door instructions. Because it's either going to say pull or push. Exactly. And if you do the wrong one...
You look stupid.
The window falls out of the old dried-up putty on the door frame. And they all just turn round and stare at you. And you're like...
Now, what's horrible is that you can't see in, so you don't know if it's full or if it's empty, so you can't prepare yourself in any way whatsoever.
Right. No,
you are at their mercy.
Yeah, the shop window's totally full of cardboard cut-out horses, usually the one you've bet on.
And they're all losing.
Yeah.
So do you know what 10 to 7 and 8 to 2 and 15 to 1 and all that means?
Oh, yeah.
15 to 1, that's on Channel 4.
That's very good.
Yeah, it's very good, isn't it?
And Joe, you were one of the questions one week. I was watching it, and it was the last round as well, and said, whose comedy series is Through the Cake Hole? And I was going, Joe Brand! And the woman said, I have no idea. As if it was the worst thing in the world you could possibly know.
Absolutely.
And he went, Joe Brand. And I went, yeah, you should have known that, love.
But the only thing
Derby
I've ever
days.
done is put sort of £2 on something to win, because I don't know what a Yankee is. Or
What's both ways?
Each way.
Each way, sorry. Freudian slip there.
Bisexual, Donna, both ways.
Yeah, of course.
You could put money on somebody being bisexual. I would think.
The Pope?
Yeah, maybe.
You can put money on anything, can't you?
Yeah, some betting shops you can put money on anything. Elvis being found on the moon.
But can you sort of create your own bet? Can you kind of go on and say, I bet my friend Sally will get off with Harry before Saturday?
Yeah, they'd probably have to take the betting shop owner around with you just to make sure you didn't fix it.
Donna, can you hear that high-pitched buzzing sound barely audible to the human ear? No. My God, it's...
Sue's News!
Woo!
Lord Archer has been accused of insider dealing in a shares scandal. A police spokesman said, it seems unlikely that we'll be able to nail a little git on this charge either. It was reported that in Potterville, Michigan in the US, more than 20 people were struck by lightning. An English meteorologist...
Hurrah, she got me!
Yes. She got me!
Yes.
We do try.
It was reported that in Potterville, Michigan in the US, more than 20 people were struck by lightning. An English weatherman, I'm not saying it, commented, what show-offs they are. They always have to go one better than us. The author James Herriot was recently attacked in his garden by an angry flock of sheep. A hospital spokesman reported he was not seriously injured, just slightly grazed. Just days after 26 people were injured in Blackpool on the world's tallest roller coaster, Alton Towers have unveiled plans to open an even bigger ride with the capacity to hurt more people than ever before. The English leg of the Tour de France has suffered some teething problems, with several cyclists being run over by lorries, elderly ladies assaulting riders on zebra crossings, and several contenders fighting with post office vans who've cut them up. Singer Bryan Adams has bought an old pub in the exclusive Chelsea area of Cheney Walk. The pub is predicted to stay at number 1 Cheney Walk for 17 weeks and move gradually up the road until it's closed when it reaches number 41.
Hurrah! She made a mistake.
Yes. You swine, you've been trying to catch me out.
Now then, Thomas Hardy once said character is fate, which of course is crap. Character is something you're given instead of good looks. Old age is fate. It cannot be avoided, and it kicks in the moment you're born. Your body stops growing at 18, you laugh it off through your 20s, then you wake up at 32 with unwanted hair, a bad back and beaded seat covers in your car.
The shock triggers off irritable bowel syndrome, and you spend the next 8 years hoping the phrase life begins at 40 is true. It isn't, of course. People have to say that they're 40. They also start saying things like, let's buy a caravan, and where's the thermos flask?
Now, none of this can be avoided, unfortunately, but it does help to be prepared. To this end, Windbags have compiled a list of things to look out for in life. Just a few little signs that mark the beginning of your end.
You wake up one morning to find that instead of your pillow taking on the shape of your face has taken on the shape of your pillow, and it stays that way all day.
You start to iron your jeans with a crease down the middle, and when they develop a hole in the knee, you throw them away.
Your parents ask you what you'd like for Christmas, and you say, a vacuum cleaner. You invite your friends round to see it, and they come.
You tell a complete stranger that spicy food goes straight through you.
You You jump down from a 3-foot wall and unbelievable shooting pains run from your feet right up your thighs. Your friends laugh as they climb down carefully.
You apply for a Marks and Spencer's charge card, and they give you one.
And although you've not had sex for over a month, you both agree it's because you've been busy.
You realise fairy washing up liquid really does go further than other brand-name detergents and think a lot more of Nanette Newman as a result.
You can't drink as much as you used to. Half a teaspoon of sherry and you're out of your box. Cheap, but the evening only lasts half an hour.
And the worst one of all, you begin to see your parents as people, too. Now, everybody has a particular record that reminds them of their own private teenage hell. Those evenings you'd storm upstairs, slam the door, turn the light out, the music up full blast, and concentrate 100% on hating your parents' guts. This was mine.
If you see me walking down the streets, and there's no to cry each time we meet. Walk on by, I walk on by, and make believe that I can't see the tears. And let me breathe, I'm private, 'cause each time I see you, I just wanna
cry. Catherine Mitchell reporting a woman and a 17-month-old girl have been killed after she jumped from an 8th floor of a tower block in Coventry with a child in her arms.
It's the Windbags on Radio 1FM.
And before the news, you heard the Stranglers, which was cut off in mid-flow, and it was nothing to do with me. It was the producer. I begged, I pleaded, I stabbed her, but it was cut off, and I'm ashamed.
I didn't worry too much about that.
That's because you've got no taste in music.
I bloody well have. I like Perry Como. Anyway, it is a pleasure and a privilege indeed to welcome the Queen of Comedy, the governess of funny faces, the headmistress of fashionable clothes for big women, and the lady in the library who goes shush of gorgeousness. Hello, Dawn French. Dawn French.
Hello, Joe Brand.
Hello, tell me.
Oh, you're all pally. This is horrible.
Us fat birds like to stick together, Donna.
Yeah, well, you have to, because you can't go out with anybody, can you?
Well, I believe
Let's
Dawn's got a
count.
husband, and I think that you haven't.
Let's count how many dalliances we've had in our past, shall we, Donna, and see who wins?
What is dalliance?
Is this all of us, or is this just you two?
No,
Are we
it's me and
fetching
Donna.
up our dalliance?
Anyway, Joe, you were saying?
Now, Dawn, I've been reading up about your past, and you went to boarding school, didn't you?
I certainly did.
And I didn't, but I read a lot of Mallory Towers, and I want to know if that's what it was really like.
Upper fourth at Mallory Towers.
Well, it was. I liked it a lot. It was a lark, Joe.
Midnight feast,
I went
anchovy
there, you know,
paste.
because my dad was in the RAF, and you can't stay with your parents and get any kind of
I did.
education. You went with your parents?
Well, like, yeah, I just moved every 2 years of my
Doesn't
life.
that show the difference?
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
had a steady education, Donna.
Yes, and now you're a stable person as a result. Yeah.
Didn't work for the RAF, he worked for the RAC. And just like,
Yeah, but he was dyslexic, yeah.
But it can't have been too bad an experience, because you went on to be a teacher for a bit, didn't you?
I did, yes.
Did you like
my sins?
Did you teach sort of
Children.
little ones? Little ones, baby ones.
I did. In my teacher training, we had to teach in junior schools, and I found that very difficult because
Why?
of the having to have patience, really, which I find I have none of, and also wanting to hurt children badly. That was the other thing that was not good about teaching very small children. But I quite like teaching the older ones. And I taught at Parliament Hill School. Do you know it?
Good God, yes.
There's a lot of girls with no tights and blotchy legs and white shoes. In fact, I still, in Camden, where I think we are right now, and there are people who shout, "Hello, Miss French," at me. And they're people in their 30s.
Can I have some lessons?
Yeah. Yes, I got into trouble with the teaching sometimes, because when you're teaching drama, it's not sort of plays or acting, you're teaching social drama, which is really just having a good laugh while no one's looking. And I remember asking the children to bow to me at the beginning of lessons and beg me for the classes. And they did used to do it, and they would call me Your Majesty all the way through, and we all enjoyed it, except for there were some parents who didn't get the joke. They reported me to the headmistress for having the
Is this
children.
true? Are you
It's
making
absolutely true, and I was called in by the headmistress and asked, and you know, in the cold light of day when the headmistress says to you, "Are you asking your pupils to call you Her Majesty?" And you have to say, Yes, I am. He said, well, please don't. So, you know, I did get into trouble with that. I also got into trouble with some of the smaller children, because if you do games in drama about imagination, sometimes the kids don't quite get it. There's an age at which children suddenly understand about pretending, and there's an age when they don't. And I remember doing a whole project with some kids about going to the moon. And it was so that we could explore weightlessness, we could do dancing, we could talk about food and what we'd take with us, we could write letters to our families to say goodbye before we went, we could listen to David Bowie.
This is why they've introduced the national curriculum.
It's about bringing drama into geography, maths and all that. Complete bollocks that was hip in the early 80s. Anyway, I remember doing several classes with these kids, in fact, a whole term of it. And the penultimate lesson, I remember saying, well, next week we're going to the moon. So everybody, it's going to be fantastic. That's the climax of these classes this year, and they all went off. And I went to the staff, and there was a knock at the door, and there was this kid in floods and floods of tears. And just like, I can't go to the moon. I can't go to the moon. I've got a dog. You suddenly realise this kid for an entire term had not understood.
Aww.
That was my fault.
So you're a crap teacher?
I tortured them.
So you're quite pleased about that?
Yeah, very.
What about your clothes shop? Do you
Yeah.
visit it? Because it's in Camden, is it?
It is, just around the corner.
Have you popped in today at all?
Not today, but yesterday I did.
And what do you do when you go there? Just say, oh, that's
Try
my
on
shop.
trousers. And,
Do you
then,
buy your own clothes?
I unfold things and just leave them on the floor and then walk out and say I don't want any.
It is quite good fun doing that. I've done that.
Or ripping open the changing room doors and laughing at people. That's the other thing I do when I go.
Yes, but I read that you didn't have communal changing rooms. I read
No,
this
we
one
don't.
thing. And I absolutely agree, because that's the worst thing. And they're the saddest places on earth, aren't they?
They're just awful. I don't know why you should ever have to
Full of the
fight
smell of
places.
stale tights and bitter disappointment, aren't they?
You know what? It's more it's a bit
Poetic.
Write that down.
What sizes?
Size 16 up to a size 47.
So nothing to fit me at all?
Absolutely not. You'd be very unwelcome then.
Not even the curtain?
You could come in with a bigger friend. You'd be allowed in then.
I don't have any bigger friends. They won't walk around with me. I have no friends at all,
But
actually.
well, I can imagine that. But you, you, Donna, have the choice of every other blummin' shop, don't you?
It has to be.
Girls like me don't. So isn't it
I
about
absolutely
time?
agree with you. I mean, I do. I mean, I read somewhere that you said that men prefer larger women, and I did read a survey, and this, if you think you use your common sense, this is true. Men much prefer to go to bed and have sex with big women. It's more fun, but they don't want to be walking down the street with them, and they prefer to walk around with some like
true, though.
completely underweight, sort of sagging old bitch like me. And that's the sadness of it, is that they don't actually. They're not. Men are
Don't put yourself
mostly
down,
not attractive.
Donna.
No, I will
Underweight,
at this point, because I feel
sagging.
guilty because I'm
small.
thin.
Well, I actually once went out with someone. Actually, I didn't go out with him because he wouldn't go out. But he liked going to bed with
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
But he said he wouldn't go out with me because all his friends would laugh when they saw me.
And you continued to go
But
in
you
with
see-
this person, did you?
For about another 10 minutes.
But the sad
Just had a
thing
quick
is that,
last
you know,
one and then said, "Gone."
sex with me is fatal because you could poke your eye out on the hip. You see what I mean?
You just break so easily.
Well, we'll all have a go.
I don't know how you do it, but poking your eye on the hip is completely the wrong place to do it.
Well, they're on the way down. They're on the way down. Bogota. Anyway,
So what are you going to do next? Anything exciting?
I'm
that
going to
you've...
do a sitcom
Are you?
with Richard Curtis. What do you think about that?
I think that's
quite good.
fantastic.
I
Is
don't
he
care
going to
one way or
write
the
it
other.
or be in it?
He's writing it, thankfully, because I'm not very good at that part.
so what's this sitcom about?
Oh, it's about a vicar, thank you.
A lady vicar.
Cross-dressing.
Yes,
A vicaress.
lady vicar, yes. And I've been to visit one. I've been to a funeral to watch her working.
That must have been
and
fun.
she was the spunkiest vicar I've ever come across. She's about 24 and she's very sassy.
What's it going to be called?
At the moment it's called The Vicar. Any better ideas on a postcard?
Vickers in knickers.
No.
It's not called... Oh, thanks, Hattie. Do you mind if we pass on that?
So anyway, the most handsome man for me in the history of the universe is Shane MacGowan. And he is singing a rather romantic song for the Pogues, I think, but quite tuneful. Rainy Night in Soho.
I've been loving you a long time. Down all the years, down all the days.
that was the Pogues going on about something or other. I don't know, not interested. Now then, as a school leaver, I flirted briefly with the idea of joining the army. So, OK, the uniforms are crap, the jobs were dull, and the armed forces generally were nothing more than a machismo display of patriarchal totalitarianism spiced with undeniable puerile psychopathy. But I wanted to go on the assault course. My careers teacher came up with a much better plan. Grow up, write a few jokes, get a radio series, and ask the producer to get me a go. Why didn't I think of that? Right, well, I had an appointment with Brigadier G.K. Ramsey, CBE, at 1400 hours, and it's now 1520 hours, which I think means I'm late, yes. And I expected to be torn off a right old strip by some sort of old matron in a uniform with a big hat on, but you don't look like that at all. You're not even wearing a uniform.
Depends upon the job I do. And I've been out and about in the civilian community, so I wear civilian clothes.
So when you joined the army, which was how long ago, in fact?
It was late in my own career terms, but 1968 I was commissioned.
And that's the RACS that you joined, which no longer exists?
Yeah, we don't call it the RACS, we call it the WROC.
And the Wrens?
And I won't tell you why.
Oh, do?
I will not. Not with the microphone up my nose, no.
Oh, no, it's off. It's off. The microphone's off.
No, it's not.
When was the last time you did the old assault course, which I'm about to do this afternoon? When did you last do that assault course, Brigadier?
Well, the Aldershot News would have you believe I did it about end of September.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That recently?
Yes, but I didn't actually do it.
Oh, didn't you?
No.
When was the last time you actually did it?
I suppose about 7 or 8 years ago.
So is it going to be hell for me? What advice do you have? Basically, skip round the sides of all the walls?
No, they won't let you do that. Hang on.
Yeah, but I'm not really in the army. It's just a joke.
Swear like a trooper.
I'll do that.
And you'll get through to the other end.
OK, well, I've found Lance Corporal Debbie Ingle, who's part of the Red Devils parachute display team. Now, that sounds a bit like Goldie Hawn in Private Benjamin. You are the only woman in the regiment, aren't you?
The only woman on the Red Devils, yeah.
It's very frightening parachuting for the first time, isn't it? Have you had sort of people totally bottling out and becoming hysterical, and have you had to push them out?
We never push people out of an aeroplane. We might assist them, but we don't push them.
What does assist? That sounds like the police. We assisted him to fall down the stairs. What does assist mean?
We'll give them all the encouragement that they need to get on and do it, if that's talking to and persuading them.
I'm doing this salt course this afternoon. Am I going to severely regret this?
No, it'd be cold and it'd be wet, and maybe you'll regret it afterwards.
Jesus, 12-foot wall here. All right, all right. Ow! Oh, bloody hell. My lace, hold on. Oh, great, I get a rest. I have to watch my lace. Tie my shoelace. Oh, nice view from here. This is it's a plank. There's a big gap in the middle of this plank. I'm at about 12 feet high. So you can imagine I'm not that interested in getting my shoelace tied up. Let's go, come on! Yeah, let's go, for God's sake. Look ahead, look down. Look ahead. This is very frightening. One step. Jesus Christ. God, I'm butch. All right. Right, and this is a Burma Bridge, it's called. Right, and it's just a rope bridge, basically. I have to push out, don't I? Yeah! Right. Ugh. God, it looks a lot easier than the Krypton Factor, I can tell you.
Keep it going, one at a time, with the knees and the hands.
Joe Brand, you lucky bastard! What do you get to do? Love story. What am I doing? Killing myself. You owe me fags, Joe. Take a jump at it, cuddle it, slide down. Remember that, girls. The water jump is the last bit. They promised me it's only ankle deep.
You did well.
Really well, yeah?
Next time, try it at speed.
Yeah, well, obviously, I didn't want to push you two because you looked a bit tired. Yeah, I'm feeling it a bit. Is that not bad for a girl? That's good.
That's good.
Well. Oh,
well done.
Man. Oh, how many times do you generally do it in a session?
About 4.
4 or 5? Do you have to do that full pack?
Not
no,
to
you
start
just be in
with.
exactly the
That
same
joke
kit that's
we're
not a full
in.
packet of cigarettes, mate. That's full pack, as in soldier's gear.
Just your helmet and the kit that we're in now.
Right, well, I suppose I should thank you. Maggie and Marion, girls from hell.
Keep your legs closed on Radio 1 FM.
It was great. A little story from North Carolina here. Housewife Cynthia Gillett faced 40 years jail for setting fire to her sleeping husband's penis. But he refused to testify against her and said he still loved her. Oh, that's sweet.
You see me as a judge, though I deny it. And hold me like a grudge, then justify it.
That was Amy Mann, Say Anything, and oh dear, Say Nothing at all. I didn't like that, did you? Let me, girls, let me just run something by you here, can I? England is part of Europe, yes? And 7 of the teams in the quarter-finals of the World Cup are from countries in Europe, yes? Therefore, in some way, England is in the World Cup finals. No, because it doesn't work at all, does it? What it does do is show up the European community for the soulless sham that it is. We might well all share a chinwag in Brussels once a week, but it doesn't mean we're related. All for one and one for all? Do I not think that? It's a historical thing. We hate each other's guts, but none of us can remember why. So we hate Germans because they've got no sense of humour. They've all got jobs. They get paid a decent wage. They don't need a bloody sense of humour. We hate the French because I don't know why. Because the Sun newspaper tells us we should. I think deep down we hate them so much because they let their children drink wine. And they dress so much better than we do. And they're so much more attractive than us. And they've got the most beautiful, romantic language in the world. And they hate us because we refuse to speak it. Because people abroad speak in English and just assume they're being understood. And the annoying thing is that they are. But that's not the point now, is it? I can't stand going somewhere without knowing at least a handful of useful words. Well, actually, that's a lie. I have been to Newcastle, but I nodded a couple of times. I think I got away with it. But it is so rude to not make the effort. And it actually can be quite fun. I mean, listen to this. Mais c'est affreux, alors il faut faire quelque chose, mais c'est tout ce que j'ai. Now, I didn't actually say anything that made sense there. In fact, I think I actually did say something that made sense by mistake. But at least I didn't make sense in French. Still, we're all as bad as each other, of course. There's a movement in France to ban English words like weekend and even cheeseburger. Not that they're actually English words when they're spoken in French. They actually sound a lot more exciting. I mean, mais le weekend avec le cheeseburger. I mean, come on, that sounds like an invitation to a threesome at least. Anyway, point being, England's favourite game being tit for tat, you hit me first to there, an MP got up in the House of Commons last week and made an objection. He suggested a ban on French words like croissant and café, baguette and restaurant. Sadly, being thick and middle-aged and a man, he completely missed the connection. We need those words or we'd starve to death. The standard of English food is appalling. France doesn't need a weekend. They'll make one of their own out of profiteroles and whipped cream, and cheeseburger's bloody American. And which, while we're on the subject, am I glad the Yanks are out of the football? Aren't you? Really? Huh? I mean, when are they going to stop taking other people's things and making them a damn sight better? I mean, it's the best World Cup we've had in years, and they've only just heard of the bloody game. I can't stand that. Can you? I can't stand them. They're worse than the bloody Germans. And they smell. They smell. They're stinking. They're howling. Oh, that's better. I'll tell you one thing. Well, one thing the English have always been good at, a bit of the old xenophobia. Can't take that away from us, can you, Joe?
No, Donna. No, you can't.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
Well, we are nearing the end.
Oh, no.
Of the show. And in true disappointing one-night stand speak, it's time for
the little bit at the end.
Aww. So who wants to kick off with their little bit?
All right. Somebody wrote to me at a time when Jennifer and I did, and Kathy Burke did a single with the lovely and fragrant Bananarama.
Very fantastic single that was, too.
Yes. And the letter goes like this. Dear Miss French, you have been singing Help without my permission, fat little bitch. I hope your boobs drop off. That's the letter.
Is that from Paul McCartney?
And it's signed by who?
It's by Tom Beatle. So I think it is Paul McCartney, actually.
That's fantastic.
And this one goes on for a while, so you may need to edit it. And I also think you might need to put some beeps in. Not too many, obviously, but this is a Valentine that was sent to me this year. And it goes like this. Okay. I see 2 breasts of Dawn's full of milk. Now I'm sucking milk from your nipples and swallowing it as I off over your skin of silk and tits as I titty you between your huge tits. He's eloquent. In 69 French reference. Oh yes, he's put the roses into my bottom and then taken them out by this stage just to cut out the middle bit.
Have you compared the writing with the note that Lenny sent you earlier?
Love in all your ways from A, and lots of kisses. Isn't
he didn't put his name. He was too shy to put his name down.
It's lovely that. I've treasured that letter.
Well, that is the end of the show. It's also the end of the series, very sadly. I'd like to say a special thank you to Sue Carpenter, who's been getting up during the week at 4:30 every morning to do her show on LBC and has been turning up in her gym jams. And I do love you very much, and I'm only horrid because it's funny. Thanks very much, Sue, for coming back on the second series. Yes, it is, Dawn.
Oh, yes, it is. You're right.
Don't cut funny.
And at this particular time next week, you'll be able to hear Herring and Lee, and I'm quite interested to see how Stuart Lee's going to get on doing a show with a fish, but there you go.
Thanks to me, Sue Carpenter, who peeled the spuds, folded the bed linen perfectly and stood to attention for no reason whatsoever. To Sarah Dunant, who was put on a charge for swearing at the sergeant and court-martialed before tea time. To Dawn French, who had the very difficult choice of whether to press the button. Thankfully, it was the button on the washing machine. To Hattie Hayridge, who polished her boots so hard you could see your face in them. What a pointless exercise. To studio managers Tim Sturgeon, Ian Pratt and Dave McGrath, who went on a 15-mile run with a 35-pound backpack and actually got about 2 yards before falling over. And to Kathy Smith, Karen May and Caroline Leddy, who lay in a soaking wet camouflage dugout for a week and were invalided out of the force with nasty colds.